Drawing a face from a reference. Up to now, you've just done an imaginary face, but this time, I'm going to draw one from a reference. I told you the other day to make sure the drawing is at least as big as your hand. So you can see I just use my hand as a measurer of how big to make the face. All right, so I just drawn an oval. I'm going to draw the line straight down the center. I'm going to see if I can make this about halfway down. I noticed in some of your drawings, a lot of people are not making this exactly halfway down. You could take a sheet of paper, just a strip of paper. Here's the top of the head, here's the bottom of the head. Tear this off, fold it in half. And that's going to show you where the top and bottom is. And you can see the line I drew is just a little too high. So that's an easy way to check that. All right, and there's the horizontal line where the eyes will go. The next thing to do is divide this space into thirds. Also, a lot of you got the top third way too small. It's so easy to just use a piece of paper. You really should do that. You could use a ruler if you want, but you'd have to divide by 3. But each part of this paper, see, this is too short. It doesn't meet there. So I'm going to refold this one a little tiny bit smaller. But you want all 3 of these parts of this paper the same size. If one's too small, it's not going to help you that much. And a lot of you, and the reason I say a lot of you got that part too small was a lot of you, the noses looked very small. Okay, so now I can see the third time I tried. You see there's 3 parts of the paper and each one's the same size. All right, I'm going to mark them because I've got so many folds that I'm not, I might not know. So then we just go like this. So there's the nose, the bottom of the mouth, and here's the bottom of the whole face. All right. Now I can also do the eyes. Just try not to get the eyes too big. This has to be centered on the center line. You don't want it all the way over to one side or the other. Let's see. Using all my little pieces of paper up here. Okay, so if that's the space between the eye, and then I make another eye here. Oh, that looks just right. I got it right the first time. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But kind of estimate the space between the 2 eyes, and then copy it onto your scrap paper, and then copy it everywhere else. All right, so now I did tell you that this is all great, but if it's different from the person you're drawing, then it's not so great. So, now obviously this picture is smaller than, this is smaller than the way that I'm drawing. So you can't do an exact thing. What I'm saying is that his face is very skinny on the sides. So I have to make my eye shape a little bigger because this is too much on the sides. Just a little bigger. Let's make it this much bigger on both sides. And let's see how that does. Here's the center. Okay. And that looks better for this guy, because there wasn't a lot of space left for him. All right. So, and one more measurement for this. All right, so let's measure from here to the bottom of the chin. And I'm going to measure this and see what happens. Because I have a feeling that his nose is way longer than normal. You see, the top one's, this part's not the right size. So I'm just going to back this up a little bit. This takes some practice. There, that looks good. You can see all three parts of the folds are the same size. Okay, so these are perfect thirds. Put it right there. And look at this. This guy, I told you, and I've been using this guy as an example of an exception to the rule. This is where the nose should be, but he has a really long nose. And then you can see his mouth is lower too because, you know, the nose is taking up so much space that there's not a lot of room for his mouth. All right, so let's see about how much that is. So the mouth, it's just a little bit lower, and the nose is significantly lower. So that's going to be different for him than it would be for someone whose nose is not incredibly long. All right, so now it comes to what I consider the fun part, which is starting to put all this in. I'm going to start with the shape of his face. You can see his face is very straight here. And it's a very long face. And it's also very angular. I told you that guys are often very angular. I'm just going to start with that. I'm just going to make this really straight here. I'm also trying to keep his picture in the camera view. All right, so and then this angle of his jaw is right about where I expect it, which is just even with the ends of the mouth. So I'm just going to bring that straight down. And then it's going to come in at a pretty sharp angle. And then I'm going to make his chin really square. And then here's the top of his head. And it's almost kind of an angle. So I'm just trying to keep his picture where you can see it. All right, and he doesn't have a lot of hair. There's a little hair there, a little hair there. I'll get back to the hair later. All right. All right, I just want to draw this interesting nose he's got. Well, I'm going to do the eyes first. And the shadow of the nose comes in about right here. His nose is pretty wide right here. Now, also, if I bring the line down from the center of this part of the eye, you can see his nose is a little wider than the eye, or that space in the middle. So his nose comes out to about here. Just a really kind of a big nose. And then here's the middle of the mouth I've estimated. And the bottom lip, I'm just going to draw that. I don't really see a line here, so I'm going to just do the shadow. There's a real strong shadow there. Now the top lip, when I told you to make those little, the circles here, so there's the one in the center. He's got a very thin top lip. The center of the eyes, And his mouth is a little shorter. I told you to make the mouth about the same width as the eyes, but his mouth looks a little shorter. So I want the mouth inside of these lines. So he's not smiling. This really skinny top lip. And the bottom lip's just, I'm just going to suggest it. Okay. My eraser's gone on that pencil. A little cleanup. I'll make the face a little cleaner in a minute. I told you not to put lines here. I was just kind of trying to get the structure. All right. All right, so I'm just going to keep going with what I was doing. I'm going to just get rid of these marks. You don't want to leave those in there. And I'll do all the shading at once. I'm not going to shade the nose and then do other things and then come back and do the rest of the shading. I'll just do it all at once. The eye looks bigger on this side. His eyebrow is very low. That's sometimes can make a person look masculine, as if the eyebrow is really low. I'm just going to kind of put a little shading in here just to show where the eyebrow is. Kind of fast, messy. I don't want the video to be too long. Don't forget, don't make these parts too big. They look like aliens if they're too big, and they should be partially under this. The whole circle would go here, remember. But we only see part of it. All right, before I get too far with anything else, I just want to make sure I preserve where those highlights are. Here's the highlight, the white spot, and it's covering part of the black spot. The black spot has to be in the middle, but the white highlight does not have to be in the middle. But if it's on the right here, it has to be on the right here. They have to be aligned. Okay. There's something kind of scary about this guy. All right, here's his neck. You can just compare the corner of the jawline with where the neck goes. And you can see, if you follow the chin over it, that's where it starts to slant down right there. That slanty part's called the trapezius muscle. I'm just going to put his t-shirt in real quick. T-shirts, clothes are kind of like hair in that if you make them even with the skin, it looks like they're painted on. So you want clothes to take up a little space outside the body. Here's the neck. Here's the t-shirt. Here's the neck. Here's the t-shirt. It's a little bigger. There. We didn't talk about clothes yet. But that's the main thing about clothes, is you don't want it to look like they're painted on. You can see how there's like a little space right there. There, that's enough for now. All right, I'm just gonna refine the shape of the face before I start with the ears and stuff. Just goes out a little bit right there, and then it comes down really sharp. Every face is different. And of course, I mean, nobody's really like got a sharp angle there. It's still got a little bit of softness to it, but it still looks pretty angular. You could see Miss Bluestone erases a lot. All right, now the hair, this is still the side of the head. A little bristly hair will be right there. Same thing where he doesn't have a lot of hair. It's okay. And in fact, up here, I'll worry about all this later. I'm going to leave it kind of fuzzy. It's like, you know, he's just got like a really buzz cut kind of haircut for the hair that he has. And then there's just like this little patch. I'm just going to do this for now to show that. And then, you know, balding men, you know, normally the hairline is like right here for most people. But because this is where men often start to lose their hair, it's really just right back up to the top of the head there. So that's makes a man look very balding if you do that. All right, now let's put an ear. Now his ears are even with the bottom of his nose. So this is the bottom of his ear. But the top of his ear is pretty low. Usually they're up by the eyebrows, but his are low. And his ears stick out a little more than the way I showed you to draw ears before, so I'm just making it look like his ears. And it's just like a shape like this, and that's what we can start with. I'm going to try to make them look roughly the same, but they're a little different. So this one's kind of got an angle here. I think this is crooked. I think this is a little too low here. And there's always a big shadow right there in that part, and then there's just this little kind of thingy here. I'll put more detail in the ear later. But this part is the part you see the most in an ear. All right, so I'll come back to that. I just want to get everything in so I can get started on the shading. All right, let me get rid of all these extra lines. Let me see, I think this looks fine so far. I don't want to lose this when I put the shading on. Sometimes the shading kind of blurs all the marks you've made. And also you don't want to be erasing all this stuff after you put the shading on. And correct as you go along. Okay, so I think I'm ready to do my shading. All right. And I told you to make a patch of pencil lead. And you can just, you know, this is kind of like a brush. This is my finger covered with tissue. And just get your, it's almost like paint in that, like you can just get some of the graphite on your tissue and then just make the shading all over. It just goes really fast like this, I think. You don't want to be sitting there, you know, with your pencil putting all the shading in just one bit at a time. I'm going to go ahead and make his clothes this value as well because his shirt is kind of even darker than his skin. Now, I'm going to start looking at where the light source is. And again, these pictures that I've been using, the light source is kind of straight ahead and from like centered in front of the face, and it's a little high. You can see it's lighter on the side of the face. The highlights are all right in the middle. So yours might look differently. So, you know, there's some places I could see under the chin. Might be a little darker, so I can put a little extra shading there. And even in the clothes, it seems a little darker than his skin, so the more I can do this, the better, the faster this is going to go. This is just a really neat trick. And then I'm just going to put a little shading up at the top where he's got some bit of hair left. And I think I'm going to quit because now I can only do this with large shapes. Anything small, it's going to just not work. Just give him a little beard while I'm at it. And that's probably as far as I can go with the tissue. All right. And after this, I mean, you already saw what I did with the shading. The first thing I do is take my pencil. Well, I'm going to clean up these edges first where the tissue went outside the lines. And that'll just make all this stuff look darker. All the shading I put in will just look darker. Brush that off with your tissue. Looks like this is going to be another long one. All right, and then I'm going to use my pencil eraser, and I'm going to just start putting in the shadow, the highlights, and after that, this is basically what you've already seen. So I'm going to end the video now, but I'm going to complete the shading on this without recording it.